Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here. In this video, you're checking out our updated solo unkillable Magicka Necromancer. Actually, it's our Necro Vampire build, now updated for the Blackwood Chapter with insane damage reduction and survivability, great AoE damage and damage over time, and insane self-healing. So if you need to survive some of the toughest content in the game as a solo build, then this is going to be the build for you. Plus, it's just a lot of fun to play. We're talking about everything you need to know to make it work, including new champion points for Blackwood and adding a companion into the mix. So let's get started. All right, everybody, we are back on the Magicka Necromancer with an update to the solo Unkillable Necromancer build. This is going to be for the Blackwood Chapter and beyond, talking about some ways this build has changed. One of my favorite builds of all time, actually. Insane survivability, damage reduction is through the roof. Permanent Mistform, nearly, if you want. So let's jump right into the buffed stats. We'll talk about those first. A couple buffs here, and check out the stat page. So about 38,000 max magicka, 25k max health, 18k max stamina. Recovery is looking good, 1500, and then 900 stam recovery. About 3400 spell damage. That goes up to over 4000 with your back bar fully procced. Your spell damage on the back bar, 70% spell critical. And then resistances honestly don't matter because we're in Mistform so often, but looking at about 18,000 spell resist, 13,000 physical resist. Of course, we got 64 points into max magicka. We're using the tri-stat food for now. You can also change this over to bi-stat food if you want. I do recommend tri-stat, though, for more difficult content. The Thief Mundus is going to be ideal, just pushing that crit chance as high as possible. I went with Vampire Stage 4. Now, you don't have to do Stage 4. You can stay at Stage 1. It's a little bit less risky. You'll take less flame damage. Your regular abilities will cost less. But Vampire Stage 4, it lets you stay in Mistform longer. You can see it reduces our Vampire ability cost by 24%. So you can experiment and find which stage is best for you. But Stage 4 for me right now. Minor Protection, Major Prophecy. We'll talk about all those buffs in just a minute. In terms of the race, plenty of good options here. Now, I went with Khajiit. If you're a little bit more experienced, I would recommend Khajiit for the extra crit damage since our crit chance is so high. Crit healing and crit damage is increased by 12% on the Khajiit, which is really good. You also get bonuses to all your max stats by 915. Pretty good as well. If you are a little bit newer, then I would recommend either a Breton for the cost reduction, or High Elf is actually really good as well. You'll get even more spell damage on the High Elf, as well as some good sustain from their passives. So either way is good. Whatever you're comfortable with, go ahead and go with that one. And then other consumables, you will want spell power potions on this build just to keep it as easy, as simple as possible. If not, I'll show you, you can substitute a skill on your back bar where you still get the extra spell damage. So I think that covers the basics. Let's talk about our gear sets next. Starting with the first 5-piece set, we're using the Mother Sorrow set. A very simple, easy to get set from Overland content. Gives you max magicka as well as tons of spell critical. The reason why we want high spell critical on this Necromancer build is basically our damage also equals our healing. So if we crit damage, we do more damage, obviously. That also equals more healing for us. So as much crit chance as possible on this build makes a lot of sense, and it works really well. Mother's Sorrow is an easy, super easy way to do that. You can get the lightning staff from a quest, actually. And then just 3 pieces of jewelry. You can either buy this on Guild Traders or you can farm it from the dolmens. It comes from the Zone of Deshawn. So really powerful set, easy to get. You can use it all the way up to end game, so I definitely recommend you pick up some pieces. Now, in terms of traits for your jewelry, I like Arcane on this setup because I want my max magicka pool as big as possible. Mistform does drain a lot of magicka, so that's going to allow you to stay in Mistform for longer. But you can also do Infused, you can also do Bloodthirsty, or a combination of both for more damage. But I like Arcane with the spell damage enchant for this build. And then for the staff, the Precise Staff, for that extra 7% plus crit chance is going to be very good. You can just put the Absorb Magic enchant on this guy. Let's talk about our second 5-piece set. The Hollow Fang Thirst set is amazing for vampires. It's great for necros. Great for solo builds. You can see this gives me lots of spell critical, max magicka, and then whenever I critically heal or damage a target, I spawn a ball of hemoglobin, and after 2 seconds, this restores magicka and applies minor vitality to me and my group for about 9 seconds. So this did see a little bit of a nerf in the Blackwood chapter. It used to be over 2,000 max magicka, but I will tell you this year with the changes that we've had to like champion points, this build is stronger than ever because we have so many more sources of sustain. So this is not your only source of magicka sustain. It's just one of them. Remember, you cannot recover magicka. Your magicka recovery basically goes to 0 while you're in Mistform. So we're looking for other ways of getting magicka back. So this will be one really good way, but there are many other ways that we will talk about as well. So this does come from a dungeon. It comes from Moongrave, which is a DLC dungeon. So you'll need that in order to farm this set. And I'm just using the 5 light pieces on the body. I figured that's the easiest since it is a dungeon set. Just farm a couple of bosses at the beginning and you can get your light pieces fairly easily. So the light chest, waist, hands, legs, and feet. Divine's going to be the ideal trait with the max magicka enchant for this set. Now we do have a monster set. I went back to the monster set this patch just for the extra protection. I'm using Ice Heart here. Gives us a nice spell critical bonus for the 1-piece, as well as the damage shield and frost damage for the 2-piece. This procs very often, pretty much 100% of the time, since we have such high crit chance, and it does proc when you do critical damage. So light pieces on this as well, light helmet, light shoulders if you can get it, divines, max magicka on everything. We are using 7 pieces of light armor. That's just for the extra penetration that we get from light armor pieces. We also get extra cost reduction, extra recovery, so 7 pieces is very good this patch as well. And then finally, the back bar staff is up to you. You can run a Maelstrom staff if you want. This will be nice for some extra light and heavy attack damage because we are using Wall of Elements on the back bar. Of course, you do want this infused with a spell damage enchant that's going to get your spell damage close to 4,000, which we talked about. But if you don't have the Maelstrom staff, totally fine. You can do a crafted set. You could do a willpower staff on the back bar, whatever you have access to. It's not a big deal. But yes, that is the setup. So we got Mother's Sorrow on the front bar staff and the jewelry. We have Hollowfang Thirst on the body, Ice Heart monster set, and then a back bar ice staff of your choice. Let's jump into the skills next. Talking about the front bar, which is our lightning staff. Blood Mist, let's talk about this. This is the main skill of the build. This is what makes it work. So you dissolve into mist, reducing your damage taken by 75% as long as you're in mist form, and then you do deal AoE magic damage, and you heal for the amount of damage caused. So this is unbuffed right now. If we had our potion active, we'd be getting about 1750 magic damage per second per target. So remember, that's heals as well. So the more targets you're fighting, the more unkillable you become on this build because all that healing multiplies per target, right? Plus, you got the 75% damage reduction. Yeah, it's pretty insane. We have other sources of damage reduction as well on this build. But basically, while you're in this form, you are essentially unkillable. So yeah, that is the main skill that you will be using on the build. Of course, that does come from the vampire skill line, so you will want to be a vampire. This is our last skill here. And we do want Blood Mist, by the way, because this is the healing morph. 882 magicka per second. That cost will be about 1,100 magicka if you're stage 1. So you can save some cost. You can stay in the form longer the higher vampire stage you're at. Let's talk about our next ability. That's going to be Stalking Blast Bones from the Gravelord skill line. So this is a big burst of AoE flame damage. What's nice is this does create a corpse on the ground, which we can use for other abilities as well. So that's the second ability from the Gravelord skill line. Definitely you want this one. Good passes from the skill line too as well. And we got another one from Gravelord. It's called Mystic Siphon. This is the last ability here. You can see it does about 20k shock damage over time. And this is AoE damage over time, by the way. It puts a tether on the ground, so you do need to sort of aim or put your body in a position where all the enemies are getting damaged by the tether. This also restores Magicka back as well and increases your damage done by 3%. So tons of good stuff that we're getting from this ability. But again, you do need a corpse on the ground first before you can cast this. So just keep that in mind. And then just a passive buff, Inner Light is next from the Mage's Guild. That's right here, first ability. I'm just using this for the passive max Magicka, 5% plus 2% extra from the Mage's Guild passive, so 7% total max Magicka bonus. This is really nice. You can get the spell critical bonus as well, but that does not stack with a potion. Keep that in mind. And then our final regular ability is going to be Elemental Drain from the Destruction Staff skill line. Now, I will use this mostly on bosses. If I'm trying to solo a world boss or in a dungeon, I'll use Elemental Drain. This does debuff the boss's resistances, which is really good. It also gives you minor Magicka steal, so some extra Magicka sustain. Now, for, let's say, your grinding experience or you're just killing a lot of trash enemies, put on Boneyard instead. Actually, I have the wrong morph of this. You want the morph that reduces enemy armor. So that becomes a nice AoE debuff. It'll debuff all the enemies in the area. That's what I'd recommend for AoE only pulls. But for bosses and stuff like that, single target, definitely put on Elemental Drain. Now for the ultimate, I have Temporal Guard currently, which is from the Psijic Order skill line. Now this is going to be nice for the extra passive minor protection. So it reduces your incoming damage taken by 5%, as well as we do get a nice little damage shield whenever we block on the front bar. If you don't have this skill line, that's totally fine. You can actually put in other things here like Glacial Colossus from the Gravelord skill line as well. That's actually a really powerful damaging ultimate. So you could use that for trash pulls as well where you don't need the extra protection. But Temporal Guard will be really nice for harder content, especially bosses that hit you pretty hard. So that covers the front bar, the Lightning Staff. Let's talk about the back bar, Ice Staff. Starting with Blockade of Frost from the Destruction Staff skill line. That's our second ability. It's called Elemental Blockade. With the Ice Staff, it does ice damage, as you'll see right here. It gives us an extra damage shield, by the way, that shields you from projectiles, which is pretty cool. You also have a chance to chill and immobilize enemies from that frost damage type, so it's pretty good. Big range on this one, and of course, with the Infused Staff, this is keeping our spell damage over 4k. For the majority of the fight. So that's why you'll want this up as much as possible to proc that glyph on your back bar. Second ability on the back bar, back to Gravelord. Let's look at Skeletal Arcanist. So this does shock damage, AoE shock damage. So it goes very well with the AoE capabilities of the Necromancer, especially Magicka Necromancer. Has a nice long duration too, 16 seconds, which is almost the same as our Elemental Blockade. So you can cast these two together fairly easily. And then next up, we just have our buffs. So Channeled Acceleration comes from the Psijic Order skill line again. And this is great because it increases our critical damage by an additional 10%. So we have lots of bonus crit damage on this build. Now again, this comes from the Psijic Order. This is the third skill from the Psijic Order skill line. So if you don't have that, you can put other things here. Like for example, Mage's Guild, if you wanted to save some on your potions, you could put Degeneration in this position. That gives you the same buff as your spell damage potion. So you can save a little bit of cash here on the build if you want. That's what I would put there. And then our last two buffs, we have the Spirit Guardian, which comes from Living Death. Spirit Guardian is a nice passive heal for 16 seconds. It also is 10% damage reduction. So we have 10% from this, 5% from minor protection on the front bar. Got the 75% from Mistform. We have a lot of damage reduction on this build, which is really good. This also gives you some nice passives, which we'll talk about later. And then our final normal ability is Beckoning Armor from the Bone Tyrant skill line. Beckoning Armor is really cool. Not only does it give us the Major Resolve buff, which increases all our resistances, but while active, a ranged enemy that hits us is going to be pulled in to our Mistform, which is awesome. This is exactly what we want for this type of build, because normally sitting in Mistform, we wouldn't be able to reach a caster on the other side of the battlefield. This is going to actually bring them right into us, which is awesome. That can happen once every 3 seconds. So make sure you have this up all the time. Very, very useful. And then our backbar ultimate goes along with the vampire theme for this build. I went with Swarming Scion from the vampire skill line. So this does AoE damage. It also buffs all of our stats by 10,000, which is pretty crazy. Heals us for 15% of all the damage that we deal, and about 3,500 magic damage per second as an AoE. So this will stack with Mistform, right? So you have tons of AoE damage going out, and you are completely unkillable. I don't know how you could die when you're in the Swarming Scion with Mistform active. I'm pretty sure it might be impossible to die with both of those up. So it's really powerful. That's the main ultimate that I'm going to use on this build. Like I said, my front bar ultimate that I have right now are just passive stats from that one. So that's going to cover all of the abilities. Let's do a quick test on a boss just to show you the rotation and how it works. Channeled Acceleration, Mender, and your armor buff. Keep those 3 up, and then apply your back bar damage. So Wall of Elements, Arcanist. I'm going to debuff the boss with Elemental Drain. Put my Blast Bones up, and then as soon as that goes, you can put your Tether on. So that's basically all of our damage is now active, and I can sit in Mistform and take no damage, essentially. So there you go. When your ultimate is ready, you can go ahead and cast that. That makes you even more powerful. Let me go ahead and rebuff the back bar here, make sure the boss is debuffed. Can just sit in Mistform. I can just sit in the red here, and you know, my health bar is not even moving at this point. Make sure you keep your potion up. You can throw in a couple of heavy attacks if you happen to get low on Magicka. What's nice about the Mistform build too is normally I would get stunned by that heavy attack. I don't get stunned in Mistform, which is pretty cool. I can just stay in the red very easily. And there we go. Super easy, super simple. All right, so let's talk about passives next. Let's start with the vampire passives. Why not? We do get some cool things for the build here, especially if you go all the way to stage 4. Now, there are benefits and drawbacks to doing that. You can see we have no health recovery at stage 4. We take bonus flame damage. Our abilities cost more, but our vampire abilities cost less. So it's really up to you. Play around with the different levels. Like I said, stage 4 will let you stay in vampire, let you stay in Mistform a little bit longer, so that is nice. The main passives that you'll see as a benefit are Strike from the Shadows. So whenever you come out of Mistform, your spell damage is increased by 300 for 6 seconds. That also gets buffed by spell power. Then we get Undeath at Vampire Stage 3. You can actually take less damage, up to 30% based on your missing health, which is great for this build. Blood Ritual is how you infect other players, and then Unnatural Movement is pretty cool for moving around dungeons. It'll actually save you a lot of time, because as you sprint, you then turn invisible. It also reduces the cost of sprint by 50%, letting you sprint longer. This is actually really good just for covering a lot of ground quickly. And like I said, enemies will not attack you, most enemies, because you become invisible. So some really good passives there. I recommend all of them. But again, don't waste points. If you're at Vampire Stage 1, then you can't get those passives. In terms of class passives for the Necro, a lot of these are very strong. You'll want all of them, pretty much. Death Knell now gives you less crit chance per ability slotted, so keep that in mind. Dismember is still good, extra spell and physical penetration. And then Rapid Rot increases our dot damage, which is big on this build, by 15%. Bone Tyrant, these are mostly our like defensive, some sustained passives. Especially Last Gasp is going to be the best one. You want to make sure to max this out as soon as you can. Increases your max health by 1250, which is very good. And then Living Death, best ones here. Probably Corpse Consumption gives you 10 extra ultimate. And then Undead Confederate, we saw that with either our Arcanist or our Mender summoned, you get an extra 200 Magicka and stamina recovery. Now, you won't see that during Mistform, but when you're out of Mistform, it is quite nice. Then, yes, you'll want all of your Destruction Staff passives. We're using one on each front and back bar. All of your light armor passives are important. Vampire, we talked about these. Mages Guild. Remember, we can get extra max Magicka and Magicka Recovery from Magicka Controller. That's probably the best one there. Psijic Order. If you are using the Psijic Order, make sure to get Concentrated Barrier, This gives you that damage shield while blocking. We're going to make use of that on both the front and the back bar, which is really strong. And then, of course, your racial skills, alchemy, medicinal use, lets your potions last as long as possible. That's the basic passives. I'm going to jump into champion points next. These will be on the website, by the way. In the written guide, I'll have 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP loadouts for you to check out there. And then I will have Flames of Ambition and the Blackwood chapter if you're seeing this video before Blackwood. But in terms of the green tree, basically nothing has changed here. We still want to start off in Steed's Blessing, put 50 points here for the movement speed, 50 points into Gilded Fingers for the extra gold, and then I will usually work my way up this side. I do like Steadfast Enchantment. This basically makes your enchants last twice as long. And then Treasure Hunter lets you find better quality items and treasure chests. Rationer lets your food last longer. And then Liquid Efficiency gives you a chance not to consume a potion. So this loadout really hasn't changed for the Blackwood chapter. Blue Tree has changed a bit. There's some new nodes in here, and some of the values have changed. But we still start with Precision, so this gives us more crit chance. Max this out 20 points. And then I will go into Extended Might, pick up Piercing for the penetration. Then you can come back if you have more points, pick up Flawless Ritual and War Mage. These are pretty good. Come back out here, and your first real damaging slotted stars, the ones that go in your champion point bar, you want to pick up Biting Aura. This buffs your AoE damage, so that will buff your Mistform damage, which of course increases your healing. Max this one out as soon as you can, as well as Thaumaturge, that buffs your damage over time by up to 10%. So these are our first two real damaging stars. We can combine that over here with Fighting Finesse, 10% bonus crit damage and crit healing. That goes really well with the Necromancer with our high crit chance. Goes well with the Khajiit as well, the extra crit damage on the Khajiit, so that kind of stacks there. And then your fourth slotted star is really up to you. There's lots of good options here. Now, I like, on this build specifically, increasing the max Magicka, like I talked about earlier. Arcane Supremacy gives us as much max Magicka as possible, lets you stay in Mistform as long as possible. So that's what I would recommend there, but there are other options as well. And then you can come down here, pick up Eldritch Insight for max Magicka, Tireless Discipline for max Stamina. This is really good on a solo build. That's why I put the 20 points in here. And then you have some defensive options in Staving Death. These are going to be a little bit cheaper in the Blackwood chapter, so you can potentially max these out pretty early. Quick Recovery. Preparation now gives you 10% damage reduction. And then we can put in Hardy and Elemental Aegis. So that would be the blue CP loadout. And then red, I would recommend starting down here, actually. So we're going to get Sprinter, Hasty, Hero's Vigor, and then right away go into Siphoning Spells. So we talked about earlier how to get Magicka back in Mistform. Siphoning Spells is one of the ways you can do it because you're getting 1,500 Magicka per kill. So that's really powerful. Obviously, the more enemies you kill, the more max Magicka you're getting back. You can also come up here, Shield Master, and then Bastion is going to make your damage shield 15% stronger. I do like that as well. So that covers 2 slotted stars, and then I will get Boundless Vitality for the extra max health. Why not? And then Rejuvenation for the extra recovery. Yes, this does not work in Mistform, but when you're out of Mistform, it's nice to have a high recovery anyways. Then there's some passive stars you can get here, such as Tumbling, reduce your roll dodge cost, Defiance, reduce your break free cost, and then I usually pick up Tireless Guardian and Fortification. Again, these are just passive, so they don't take up a slotted star, which is pretty nice. So that is the champion point setup. Again, any questions, make sure to check out the written guide. I have everything detailed there. Now let's talk about companion builds just briefly here, because this is something I do want to mention, especially on a solo build, basically how a companion can make this build even more effective. And it definitely works really well. So for this particular solo build, I picked up Bastion. He has quite a few buffs that are going to enhance this build further. So I actually have this build up on my website. It's called the Amplifier build. So make sure you check out the written guide for more information on that. But basically, the way I have this set up is light armor for Bastion with a restoration staff and as many quickened traits as possible. There's many different traits coming out in the Blackwood chapter, but quickened is really good because it reduces the cooldown of all your companion abilities, which makes them basically able to cast their skills more often. So it works really well for a kind of a buff / hybrid type of companion setup. And then in terms of the skills, we're using Basalt Barrier. That's Bastion's damage shield. Puts a shield on him and you, which is pretty nice. Then we also have Searing Weapons. This buffs your light and heavy attack damage. Then Skeletal Aegis. That's another damage shield that you can get with a synergy. So basically it puts a synergy on your screen. You can take that whenever you want. So it's nice, especially for emergencies. And then he has Starfall for the damage. So it's going to help increase the DPS of your build just a little bit there. And then Haste is his last normal ability that actually resets all his cooldowns, so he can use those abilities even faster. So again, I will have the Bastion build that I'm using as a companion in the written guide. You can check out all the details there. The last thing that we have to talk about is the outfit style. Now, actually, I'm not using an outfit for most of this. I really like this style from Moongrave, the Hollowfang Thirst set. So this is what I'm using for all of the body pieces. The only thing that would be different would be the head and shoulders. The helmet is the medium Huntsman style. That's from March of Sacrifices. Shoulder would be light Dreadhorn, and that is from the Falkreath dungeon. All right, everybody. And with that, that's going to wrap up our video on the solo Unkillable Vampire Necromancer build for the Elder Scrolls Online, for the Blackwood Chapter, and beyond. This build is still a ton of fun to play, so I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, if you did, if you found the video informative, make sure you crush that like button. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. And remember, for any questions, whether it's skills, gear set options, champion point loadouts, the companion build, that's all going to be detailed in the written guide. So make sure you check out the link below in the description and the pinned comment for that one. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll have many more solo builds just like this one coming out for the Blackwood Chapter very soon. Tons of updates to get out to you guys. Quick shout out as well to the channel members here at HTM. You guys are fantastic, supporting me every single day the way that you do. I really appreciate it. If you'd like more information about becoming a channel member, just click on that join button for more information. And to every single one of you, thanks again for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.